Do you know that some country songs changed the music forever, yet never got the credit they deserved? From Ernest Tubb's "Walking the Floor Over You," which has been described as the first true honky-tonk song that gave birth to the style itself, to Webb Pierce and Bud Isaacs' "Slowly," which made musicians try to modify their lap steels with wire coat hangers in hopes of copying the sound. These are 20 underrated songs that changed country music forever. "Walking the Floor Over You" by Ernest Tubb.
I'm hoping and I'm praying as my heart breaks out.
Ernest Tubb, "I'm Walking the Floor Over You," 1961. In April 1941, Ernest Tubb stepped into a studio in Fort Worth, Texas, and recorded a song that would forever change country music. The piece was called "Walking the Floor Over You." At first, the recording was simple, Tubb's voice and acoustic guitar, with Smitty Smith adding touches on the electric guitar. When it was released, the single climbed to number 23 on the charts, and in time, it sold more than 1 million copies. Music historian David Vinopal later described it as the first true honky-tonk song, the very one that gave birth to the style itself. Honky-tonk could mean the barrooms of the American South and Southwest, where country music filled the air, or the sound of the music played inside, sharp, raw, and heartfelt, often accompanied by a tack piano. These were the places where legends like Jimmy Rogers, Lefty Frizzell, Hank Williams, Patsy Cline, Johnny Horton, and Merle Haggard first found their voices. Tubb himself never let go of the song that made him famous. He returned to it again and again, recording new versions in 1944, 1959, 1963, and 1977. In 1979, he joined Merle Haggard and Charlie Daniels to record yet another version, which reached number 31 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles chart. The legacy of "Walking the Floor Over You" has continued long after its first success. In 1998, the original 1941 recording was honored with a place in the Grammy Hall of Fame. More than 2 decades later, in 2022, the Library of Congress preserved it in the National Recording Registry, recognizing it as a work of deep cultural and historical importance. And "There Stands the Glass" by Webb Pierce. https://youtube.b/qevj1zby/cell5 HZGPXYANS9. "There Stands the Glass" was first recorded by Blaine Smith, but it was Webb Pierce's version, released a year later, that really changed country music. Written by Russ Hull, Mary Jean Schertz, and Audrey Grisham, the song carried a message that country music had long avoided. At a time when the genre was trying to present itself as wholesome and respectable, songs about drinking were considered too risky, almost as forbidden as songs about adultery. When Webb Pierce recorded "There Stands the Glass" in 1953, it challenged those boundaries. Produced by Owen Bradley with steel guitar by Jimmy Day and piano by Floyd Kramer, the recording introduced a sharper honky-tonk sound marked by electric guitar, steel backing, and a steady 2-beat rhythm. Pierce's high, nasal voice gave the performance a distinct style that would later influence singers such as Willie Nelson and Farron Young. Many radio stations banned the song for supposedly promoting alcoholism, and even Pierce's own label, Decca Records, hesitated to release it. However, fans refused to be silenced and flooded stations with requests until programmers were forced to play the record. The response was overwhelming. The song held the number 1 spot for 12 weeks and became the first drinking song in country music to achieve widespread success. Its triumph opened the door for what would become a central theme of the genre. Bob Dylan praised its striking guitar sound, while Rolling Stone ranked it among the greatest country songs of all time. From Loretta Lynn to Sam Hunt, artists across 7 decades have covered or reimagined the song Slowly by Webb Pierce and Bud Isaacs.
So I think it would be only good to do something for the folks out there.
H2 tele U2BQ87PT78BQ SI RUJCMIV 0YQXY9AC. In 1954, Webb Pierce released a song called Slowly, written by Pierce and Nashville songwriter Tommy Hill, the brother of singer Goldie Hill. The song quickly became a sensation. It stayed at #1 on Billboard's Country Bestsellers chart for 17 weeks and remained on the charts for a total of 36 weeks. By the end of the year, it ranked as the third biggest country and western hit. However, Slowly is being remembered for more than its success on the charts. Its true legacy lay in the sound that changed country music. Producer Owen Bradley had invited Bud Isaacs to play the new pedal steel guitar, designed by Paul Bigsby. Isaacs used the pedals in a way no one had heard before, pressing them while the notes were still ringing. This created a bending, emotional tone that gave the steel guitar a new voice. The effect was so striking that it set off a revolution. Within months, steel guitar players everywhere were rushing to add pedals to their instruments. Some even tried to modify their lap steels with wire coat hangers in hopes of copying the sound. The song's opening notes, played by Isaacs, became iconic and inspired generations of musicians. From Lloyd Green to Buddy Emmons, nearly every great steel guitarist that followed built on the breakthrough Isaacs revealed in Slowly. The song itself also lived on through many artists. Connie Smith recorded it in 1966 for her album Connie in the Country. In 1968, bluegrass star Jimmy Martin included it on his album Freeborn Man. In 1971, Jimmy Dean and Dottie West recorded a duet version that climbed into the top 40 on the country chart. Louisiana Swing by Bud Hobbs and Buck Owens.
He's running wild, stealing kisses all the while. The love bug bites everyone in.
Bud Hobbs, Louisiana Swing. In 1954, MGM artist Bud Hobbs recorded a song called Louisiana Swing. The little-known recording session quietly gave birth to a new sound in country music. The musicians gathered that day included Buck Owens on lead guitar, Bill Woods on piano, and the twin fiddles of Oscar Whittington and Jelly Sanders. What came out of the session was unlike anything heard before. This would later be called the Bakersfield Sound. In the years that followed, this new style grew into one of the most important movements in country music. By the early 1960s, artists such as Merle Haggard, Buck Owens, and his band the Buckaroos carried the Bakersfield sound into the mainstream. Their music stood apart from the smoother, more polished productions coming out of Nashville. With its twangy guitars, driving rhythms, and honest lyrics, the Bakersfield sound laid the foundation for country rock and influenced generations of artists, from Dwight Yoakam and Marty Stewart to the Mavericks and the Derailers. Gene Shepard, who recorded for Capitol Records in the 1950s, worked closely with Bakersfield musicians. Her breakthrough single, A Dear John Letter, became the first major country hit made entirely with players from the Bakersfield movement. The influence of Bakersfield even shaped the instruments of the era. During the 1960s, many small guitar companies opened in the region to meet the demand for this new style. Among them was the Mosrite Guitar Company, based in Bakersfield until the death of its founder, Semmy Mosley, in 1992. Buck Owens himself became both a leader and a guardian of the sound. In 1996, he opened Buck Owens Crystal Palace in Bakersfield. The venue was also a museum dedicated to country music's history, keeping alive the story and spirit of the Bakersfield sound. Your Cheatin' Heart by Hank Williams. Hank Williams III, Your Cheatin' Heart, October 21, 1995, backed by the Statesiders and Singers. Hank Williams wrote what would become one of the most famous songs in country music in 1952, Your Cheatin' Heart. The idea for the song came during a car ride from Nashville, Tennessee to Shreveport, Louisiana, with his fiancée at the time. Though his career was shining, Williams's personal life was troubled. His marriage to Audrey Shepard had collapsed, and he struggled with heavy drinking and an addiction to painkillers prescribed after a failed back operation for spina bifida. During the drive, Williams began speaking about his first wife. He described her as having a cheatin' heart and warned that one day she would have to pay. Those words sparked something in him. He quickly dictated the lyrics to his fiancée, who wrote them down in his notebook as the song took shape. On September 23rd, Hank Williams entered Castle Studio in Nashville to record what would become his final session. That day, alongside Your Cheatin' Heart, he recorded several songs, including Call Liga, I Could Never Be Ashamed of You, Take These Chains From My Heart, and a new ballad he believed to be special. The session was guided by his publisher, Fred Rose, who made small adjustments to the lyrics. After the recording session, Williams introduced the song to his friend Braxton Shuffert, calling it the best heart song I ever wrote. Just a few months later, tragedy struck. While traveling to a New Year's concert in Canton, Ohio, Williams never reached the stage. During a stop in Oak Hill, West Virginia, the driver discovered him lifeless in the back seat of the car. When Williams died not long after, the song was released and took on an even deeper meaning. It seemed to capture the loneliness and pain that defined his life, turning him into a symbol of country music's ability to speak raw truth. The song rose to become one of the great standards of the genre, often described as the very definition of country music itself. Colin Escott, a British music historian, wrote that the song defined country music. AllMusic named it Williams' signature song and the unofficial anthem of country music. Also, Rolling Stone declared it one of the greatest country standards ever recorded. Amarillo by Morning by Terry Stafford.
Everything that I got.
Terry Stafford. Amarillo by Morning. In 1973, Terry Stafford found inspiration for a song during a long drive home. After performing with his band at a rodeo in San Antonio, Texas, Stafford headed back to Amarillo. The road was long, and the memory of the rodeo stayed with him. Along the way, he thought of a title, something he had first heard in a FedEx commercial, Amarillo by Morning. When Stafford shared the idea over the phone with songwriter Paul Frazier, the two worked quickly. By the next morning, Frazier had written the song. Stafford recorded it that same year for his album, Say, Has Anybody Seen My Sweet Gypsy Rose? Released as a single, it earned only modest success, reaching the lower levels of the country charts in the United States and Canada. Nearly a decade later, the song found real success. In 1982, George Strait recorded Amarillo by Morning for his album Straight from the Heart. George Strait, Amarillo by Morning official music video. Released as a single the following year, it climbed to number 4 on the Billboard Country chart. With Strait's smooth, steady voice and simple arrangement, the song captured the spirit of rodeo life and the loneliness of the road. It soon became one of his signature songs, a piece that audiences came to expect at every performance. Over time, the song earned its place as one of the greatest in country music. Billboard ranked it among George Strait's top 10 songs, while American Songwriter placed it even higher. In 2024, Rolling Stone included it at number 10 on its list of the 200 greatest country songs of all time. If you are enjoying this video, appreciate it by giving it a thumbs up, and if you have not subscribed, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button. Honey, I'm Home by Shania Twain.
Car won't stop, it's falling apart. I was late for work and the boss got...
Shania Twain, Honey, I'm Home, live. By the 1990s, country music was reaching further into the world of pop than ever before. Only few artists embodied this shift more than Shania Twain. With her bold sound and wide appeal, she blurred the lines between traditional country and polished pop, creating music that resonated across genres. Among her many hits, Honey, I'm Home stood out as both a commercial success and a statement of modern womanhood. Written by Twain and her husband and producer Robert John Lang, the song tells the story of a woman returning from a long, difficult day and expecting her partner to help ease her stress. With its wit, humor, and directness, the track reflected a new kind of voice in country music, unapologetically feminist, confident, and honest about everyday struggles. Critics often remark that the song carried little of the country's traditional sound, leaning instead toward pop influences. Yet audiences embraced it fully. Released in 1998, the single climbed steadily until it reached the top of the Billboard Hot Country Songs chart on October 31st. It became Twain's seventh and final #1 hit in the United States and her fifth consecutive #1 in Canada, where it also dominated the RPM Country Tracks chart. In total, the song spent 26 weeks on the charts and even reached #1 on the Hot Country Recurrence chart. I Can't Change the World by Brad Paisley.
Pretty when you're watching it all alone.
Brad Paisley, I Can't Change the World. Live, Sirius XM. The Highway and Brad Paisley's I Can't Change the World was released in 2013 as part of his Wheelhouse album. At first, it did not seem like a song that would leave a lasting mark. It entered the charts modestly, and for the first time in Paisley's career, failed to reach the top 20 on country radio. Yet beyond its numbers, the song carried a message that made it one of his most important works. Paisley explained that the heart of the song was simple. Even if the world feels broken, changing one person's life can make a difference. The lyrics reflected on faith, human struggles, and the way modern life, especially technology, can divide people instead of bringing them together. To Paisley, this was not just another love song. It was one written for the times we live in. Billy Dukes of Taste of Country gave the song 4 stars out of 5, writing that it is a compelling piece of production because it's both sparse and vulnerable, as well as textured and complicated. Michael Sudalter of Rough Stock highlighted its quiet strength in the vocals and acoustic guitar. Though not his most commercially successful single, I Can't Change the World stood out for the way it blended tenderness with social reflection. In many ways, the song's power was not in where it charted, but in how it spoke to listeners. Help Me Make It Through the Night by Kris Kristofferson. Help Me Make It Through the Night. American Outlaws, live at Nassau Coliseum, 1990. In 1970, Kris Kristofferson wrote a ballad that would change country music forever. Help Me Make It Through the Night. The idea for the song came from an interview Frank Sinatra once gave to Esquire magazine. When asked what he believed in, Sinatra answered, "Booze, broads, or a Bible, whatever helps me make it through the night." Those words stayed with Kristofferson, and they became the spark for one of his most powerful songs. At the time, Kristofferson was still a struggling songwriter, living for a while with Dottie West and her husband in Nashville. He offered the song to West first, but she felt it was too suggestive and turned it down. She later recorded it, but only after others had already found success with it. West would go on to say that not accepting it when it was first offered remained one of the greatest regrets of her career. It appeared on his 1970 eponymous album, Kristofferson. However, the most well-known and successful version is by Sammy Smith, also released in 1970, but it was actually the third cover, preceded by Percy Sledge and Ray Price. Sammy Smith's version, recorded in 1970, became the breakthrough. Her recording reached #1 on the U.S. country charts and even crossed over to the pop charts, climbing as high as #8. The performance earned her a Grammy Award, and opened the door for the song to be recognized as more than just another country ballad. In the years that followed, Help Me Make It Through the Night was recorded by countless artists, each giving it their own voice. Willie Nelson's 1980 version brought the song to new audiences, and others like Tammy Wynette, Johnny Cash, Elvis Presley, Joan Baez, Brian Ferry, and even Michael Bublé with Lauren Allred kept its legacy alive. Honey Don't by Carl Perkins. Carl Perkins. Honey Don't, 1956. In January 1956, Carl Perkins released a single that carried not just one, but two songs that would leave a lasting mark on music history. On one side was Blue Suede Shoes, a track that would go on to become a rock and roll anthem. On the other was Honey Don't, a song that quietly carried its own influence, shaping the future of both rockabilly and country music. Rockabilly, the sound Perkins helped define, combined the storytelling roots of country with the rhythms and drive of rhythm and blues. The mix created something entirely new, a style that carried the raw energy of early rock and roll while staying connected to the heart of Southern country traditions. Honey Don't showed just how daring Perkins could be as a songwriter. When he first introduced the song to his band, his brother Jay Perkins was puzzled. The chord changes felt unusual, even wrong, especially the leap to a C7 after an E, instead of following the expected blues progression. Jay resisted at first, but Carl insisted that the difference was exactly what made the song work. That bold choice gave Honey Don't its unique character, and today it remains one of the details that musicians point to as groundbreaking. By blending country's roots with the edge of blues, Carl Perkins pushed country music closer to rock and roll. Honey Don't may not have been the hit that Blue Suede Shoes was, but it's helped open the door for a new sound that changed country music forever. Folsom Prison Blues by Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash, Folsom Prison Blues, live at San Quentin, good sound quality. While serving with the United States Air Force in West Germany, Johnny Cash watched the film Inside the Walls of Folsom Prison. The story of life behind bars left such an impression on him that he soon began writing a song that blended two themes he would return to many times in his career, the Lonesome Train song and the haunting prison ballad. That song became Folsom Prison Blues. Cash recorded it in 1955 for Sun Records, and it later appeared on his debut album, Johnny Cash, with his hot and blue guitar, in 1957. The recording stood out for its raw and unusual sound. With no drummer in the studio, Cash placed a piece of paper beneath his guitar strings to mimic the snap of a snare drum, giving the track its stark rhythm. The lyrics carried the same weight. Cash recalled sitting with his pen, trying to imagine the coldest reason a man might kill. Out of that moment came one of country music's most chilling lines. I shot a man in Reno just to watch him die. It was a statement that gave the song its unforgettable edge. More than a decade later, in 1968, Cash returned to the very place that had inspired him. He performed Folsom Prison Blues before a crowd of inmates inside California's Folsom State Prison. That live recording captured the raw connection between the artist, the song, and its audience. It reached #1 on the country charts, climbed into the Billboard Hot 100, and earned Cash a Grammy Award. Folsom Prison Blues reshaped country music by bringing grit, realism, and rebellion into its storytelling. It remains one of the most defining songs of Johnny Cash's career, and one of the most influential moments in the history of American music. Blue Moon of Kentucky by Bill Monroe. Bill Monroe and his Bluegrass Boys, Blue Moon of Kentucky. In 1945, Bill Monroe, known as the father of bluegrass, wrote a waltz that would change the sound of American music. The song was Blue Moon of Kentucky. Some say its roots may have stretched back to an earlier song called Roll Along Kentucky Moon, recorded by Jimmy Rogers in the 1930s. But it was Monroe who gave the piece its unmistakable bluegrass spirit. At that time, bluegrass was beginning to take hold as a new voice in country music. Monroe, leading his band, the Bluegrass Boys, became one of its greatest pioneers. His first known performance of Blue Moon of Kentucky came on the Grand Ole Opry stage on August 25, 1945. A year later, on September 16, 1946, he recorded it at the Wrigley Building in Chicago for Columbia Records. The record was released in early 1947, and by then, the song had spread across the country. The band included two musicians who would later leave their own lasting mark: guitarist Lester Flatt and banjo player Earl Scruggs. Both performed on the recording, though it was Monroe himself who carried the vocals. Their version was described as a bluegrass waltz, and it quickly became a nationwide hit. Other country, bluegrass, and even early rockabilly artists soon embraced it. Elvis Presley recorded his own version in the 1950s, and years later, Paul McCartney would also record his own version. The song's influence was so great that it even inspired Carl Perkins to move to Memphis, where he found success in rock and roll. In Kentucky, it earned an official title, the state's official bluegrass song. Over the decades, Blue Moon of Kentucky has continued to find new voices. In 2013, Alan Jackson recorded it for his bluegrass album. Monroe's original version was honored in 2002 when the Library of Congress added it to the National Recording Registry. The following year, CMT ranked it number 11 on its list of the 100 greatest songs in country music. Mama Tried by Merle Haggard.
First thing I remember knowing was a long...
Merle Haggard, Mama Tried, Love. In the summer of 1968, Merle Haggard released a song that would become one of the defining pieces of his career. Titled Mama Tried, it was both a tribute to his mother and an admission of his own failures. The song told the story of a young man who turned against the lessons of his childhood, ending up in prison and leaving his mother heartbroken. Haggard himself knew that pain well. He had spent 3 years behind bars at San Quentin after a robbery conviction in 1957. Although the lyrics spoke of a man serving life without parole, Haggard's own sentence was not as severe. The emotions in the song were drawn directly from Haggard's troubled youth. He poured his real regrets into the fictional story, blending truth with imagination in a way that felt deeply personal. At the heart of Mama Tried was sympathy for the mother who had done everything she could to guide her son. Haggard sang of Sunday teachings and constant care, yet admitted that no matter how hard she tried, he continued down the wrong path. His words painted the picture of a son who understood too late the cost of his rebellion. Musically, the song carried the sharp, electrifying sound of California's honky-tonk tradition, driven by Roy Nichols' searing guitar. It set a standard for country songs about outlaws and misfits, and for many it became Haggard's greatest single. Over time, Mama Tried grew far beyond its first release. It became a cornerstone of Haggard's legacy, honored with the Grammy Hall of Fame Award in 1999. In 2016, just 2 weeks before Haggard's death, the Library of Congress chose it for preservation in the National Recording Registry, recognizing its cultural and historical weight. Desperados, Waiting for a Train by Guy Clark. Guy Clark, Desperados, Waiting for a Train. Guy Clark's song, Desperados Waiting for a Train, has traveled a long road through American music. The story behind it is deeply personal. Clark once explained that the song was inspired by his grandmother's boyfriend, a man named Jack, who became like a grandfather to him. From this memory, he created a ballad that spoke to themes of aging, companionship, and the passing of time. The song first appeared in 1973 when Jerry Jeff Walker recorded it for his album Viva Terlingua. Within a short time, other artists began to carry it forward. Rita Coolidge included it on her 1974 album Fall into Spring, while David Allan Coe featured it on The Mysterious Rhinestone Cowboy that same year. Tom Rush also recorded a version before Clark finally released his own on his debut album Old No. 1 in 1975. Over the years, the song has continued to find new life. In 1985, the legendary country supergroup The Highwaymen, Willie Nelson, Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, and Chris Christopherson released their version as a single. It climbed to number 15 on the Billboard Hot Country Singles and Tracks chart, giving the song its greatest commercial success. Later, Nancy Griffith revisited it in 1998 on her album Other Voices Too, joined by Clark himself and fellow songwriters Steve Earle, Jerry Jeff Walker, Rodney Crowell, Jimmy Dale Gilmore, and Eric Taylor. Even decades later, the song remained a touchstone. Jason Isbell performed it in 2015 during Guy Clark's induction into the Austin City Limits Hall of Fame, honoring both the man and his work. Its reputation also reached beyond country music circles, as the Western Writers of America named it one of the top 100 Western songs of all time. Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash.
And the flames went higher, and it burns, burns, burns.
Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire Live. Ring of Fire began as a song written by June Carter and Merle Kilgore. The first recording was not by Johnny Cash, but by June's sister, Anita Carter, who included it on her 1962 album Folk Songs Old and New. Released by Mercury Records under the title Love's Ring of Fire, Anita's version was even highlighted as a pick hit in Billboard magazine. When Johnny Cash heard Anita's recording, he later explained that he had a dream about the song. In the dream, he imagined it played with bold mariachi-style horns, a sound that had recently gained attention in America through Herb Alpert's 1962 hit, The Lonely Bull. Cash told June Carter that if Anita's version did not succeed within a few months, he would record it himself in the way he believed it should sound. Anita's recording did not become a major success, so Cash followed through on his promise. In 1963, he recorded Ring of Fire with the dramatic horn arrangement from his dream. This version, included on his album Ring of Fire, The Best of Johnny Cash, quickly became one of the most important songs of his career. Cash's version stayed at number 1 on the country charts for 7 weeks and eventually sold more than 1.2 million digital copies. It was certified gold in 2010 and has continued to receive recognition over the decades. Country Music Television ranked it as the 4th greatest country song, while Rolling Stone declared it the greatest country song ever written and placed it at number 87 on their list of the greatest songs of all time. In 1999, Johnny Cash's version of Ring of Fire was honored with induction into the Grammy Hall of Fame. If you have heard any of these tracks, which one is your favorite? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and check out our next video for more content.